Yeah, well, again, shout out to Callum's work for sponsoring this episode.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I really hope my manager doesn't listen to this one.
That's okay, we're popular, but we're not that popular. We haven't broken into the non-modeler market yet.
Yeah, we got that one guy in Moscow listening, so.
Hey, Sergey.
Nah, bro, that's Putin.
Putin listening to us from the bunker. Alrighty, well, on that note, you are listening to the Micro Machines podcast. And today, we have Callum. Callum, what are you talking about with us today?
I am going to be sharing one of my favorite tanks, the KV series, or the Klement Voroshilov.
I was looking forward to hearing you pronouncing that.
Dude,
it's even worse trying to pronounce it with a Kiwi accent. It just doesn't work.
All of the virgin tank nerds have now found the clit. I could not pass that one up.
Well, before we get into it, shall we do some introductions?
Callum first.
I'll go first. So you got me, Callum, from New Zealand, and I've got myself my usual black coffee because I need caffeine most of the time.
Alrighty, then you've got me, Dennis, from Ontario, currently drinking a nice herbal tea to try and fight off this cold.
Then you got me, Garrison, out here in nice and cool Southern California, finally, drinking my Mio water and eating a little bit of dinner.
You've got electricity and water, and you live in California? This is not possible.
Dude, it's a fucking... I got some wizard shit going on.
He's got his own generator and well dug in his basement.
That's a very Garrison thing to do. I could see that.
I wish I had a basement, bro. Our next house is definitely going to have one.
Well,
yeah, so unfortunately we don't have Ezra or Jack. Ezra might turn up later.
Them after the fact in the Discord.
Yeah. So it's just the three of us this week, but that is all good. So why don't we kick this off about all the wonderful KVs?
I'm seeing lots of nice interwar design here. This is very appealing.
Yes.
I love... Real quick, Callum, I got a quick question that you might answer. Later. So on the left-hand side, the T-35 with the 5 turrets, that turret ring around the actual main turret, I've seen like the early war armor from Russia and like Poland having that turret ring, and then later war variants didn't. Why is that?
I believe it's a very early radio antenna, I believe. They're not grab handles.
You're kidding!
They had those on the BT-7s, actually.
Yes.
Yeah.
5 and the BT-7, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think they're grab handles. I think they were early radio antennas because the Japanese command tanks had them as well. They had a similar design. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You see a lot of early Russian tanks, command tanks and stuff, have these antennas. I believe that's what they were from. If I am wrong, please abuse the fuck out of me in comments and tell me I'm wrong. I always like to be corrected. But that's what I believe they were.
Callum's letting us know his favorite kinks. All right, thank you for answering that.
Yeah. But, so, before we talk about the KVs, we should probably talk about what happened before the KVs, because it's actually kind of fairly interesting. Basically, after the First World War, the Russians were experimenting with tanks, as we know. They sent their T-26s and BTs off to Spain to test during the Spanish Civil War, and it was found that there was a need for a heavy tank. And this being interwar, they were still big into multi-turret tanks. And they had accepted the T-35 into service, the T-35 being the absolute monster of a tank with 5 turrets.
Do they have like 18 crew members or something like that?
Yes. You have, 3 in the top turret with the commander with a 75mm howitzer. You had 2 in each of the turrets for the 45s, and 1 in the each turret for the machine guns plus a driver. So that's, what is that? 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yep, 11.
Wow. How heavy was that thing? How many rounds could that hold?
I know it's heavy enough that every time they drive it on the asphalt during the Moscow Victory Parade, they have to resurface the road afterwards because it crushes it.
Oh my god.
Even just turning, it tears it up.
That is ridiculous.
That is a big bitch.
Yep. So
the turning radius of it's awful too.
Oh, the T-35 was it was described as extremely tiring to drive, just for the fact that it didn't turn that well because it is such a long, wide tank, and especially for war, very impractical. I mean, it sounds nice. This is the whole time of land battleships. There was because of course this is interwar time. People didn't really know what the tank was for, whether it was for infantry support, whether it was for fighting other tanks, whether it was for assaults or defense or whatever. Interwar time was interesting because no one actually knew what a tank was or what it was going to be used for.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry about that. Just to say, at this point, it's basically a mobile defense bunker is what I would use it for. Like, that's just that. I think I feel like if you set that, like, you dug it in to where it comes up to the top of the tracks, that way it's not really exposed, and you turn the turrets to the right or left hand side. That's a whole fucking battery line in a small pocket.
Yeah.
Well, I was just going to point out, you see this with the Independent. Remember, we talked about that way earlier on. But with the Independent and with these tanks, you'll notice how long they are. And I think one of the ideas was that after the First World War, the idea was that the next war would also be one where there were all these trenches, right? Well, this design makes a lot of sense for that because if you have to cross the trench, well, you think about having a long chassis is actually in that case not a bad thing. You're driving in a straight line. You need to have good trench crossing ability. So in that respect, I think these designs would actually be pretty good.
Yeah, they never had to do that. Really. The multiple turret design. I mean, the trench is going to be on your left and right, and your front and your rear, so you can hit all angles as you're going over.
Yeah. So that's the T-35. The other two we've got. So the top right, that's called the SMK. I've actually got a model of this one. It is an awesome tank.
You did an amazing model of that.
Well, I was stuck at home during lockdown, so I had plenty of time. And the one below it that looks very similar is the T-100. Now, these three tanks were competing to become Soviet Russia's next heavy tank. That sounds a bit like a reality TV show, that. I'd watch that.
I would totally watch that.
Yeah.
100%.
So the Soviets were still thinking, two turrets, you have one with a 45 in it, that's your anti-tank gun. And at the top you have a 75mm howitzer, that's your infantry gun. Early war, no one really thought you could just have a bigger gun and use it for everything. Everything was divided down into you had higher penetration values with smaller caliber guns and better high explosive with larger caliber. Technology was still pretty new. Now, the SMK, this one was the main designer of the KV. The KV-1 is actually basically a shortened single turret variant of the SMK. The original KV-1 was, they made a single turret version as a backup, but it wasn't originally supposed to be in the running. These tanks, they were found to be not that good though. They were used, all three of them were used during the Second World War early on. T-35 was used in the defense of Operation Barbarossa. The T-100 and SMK ended up in the continuation war against Finland, where they had heavy armor, yes, but they didn't do that much. They weren't that good, owing to the turrets. If you have more than one turret, the commander can get overwhelmed with what gets shot where and just that kind of stuff, which was one of the main failings of a multi-turret tank is just the coordination. The commander can get way too overworked and it just becomes basically a clusterfuck.
An overworked Soviet.
The M3
I've never heard of
which
it.
were comparatively modern, had that issue.
Yeah. Which is why single turret tanks were favored in the end, because it's easier if you just have one gun that does everything, one turret, one commander. Makes life a whole lot easier. Not that I'm saying it was easy, but yeah. So these were the forerunners of the KV. All of these proved not to be that good. The designer of SMK put forward his KV-1, and that one was initially decided to be the heavy tank. It was ordered into prototype, which became what was known as the KVO, which, if you go to the next slide, here it is.
Look at that.
So the KVO. To describe the KVO to anyone who is just listening and not watching, basically you take what you know is a KV-1, and in the gun, in the mantlet, you put a 75mm in the middle and a 45mm off to the side of it, a bit like the Neubel Faustig. It's got a tandem gun mount. Because they were still operating on the 45 as the anti-tank, 75 as the anti-infantry. Thought it would be easier if it was all in one turret. Again, it's not that practical. It never went anywhere. But from this, they did learn.
Should have. It's perfect. Look at it.
To be honest, I think it looks way better. I think it looks way better. Now, they decided to drop the 45 in favor of a better designed 70. They didn't have a 75. It was a 76.2mm. The Russians didn't have 75s. They had to be unique.
Just had to be different.
So from the KVO, they did a whole bunch of testing. They refined it, and it became the KV-1 model 1939, which, if you go to the next slide, here it is. Now, it's still KV-1, but it's still not the KV-1 we know and love.
You can definitely tell there's some features here which still have to be refined until you get to that production version.
Yeah. So, this 1939 model, originally they wanted to use the F-32 76.2mm cannon. However, production of these in the early parts of the war was limited, so originally KV-1s were mounted with an L11 76.2mm cannon. You'll notice the main difference in this is the gun mantlet, the recoil. Was it the recoil spring on the gun? You know, the big piston that's usually underneath actually sits on top, so the gun sits low in the mount as opposed to the other way around. You know, you see tanks and you got the recoil spring underneath it, as you see with all Soviet cannons. This one, it's got it on top, so the gun is mounted low down in the mantlet. It also does not have a Hull MG gunner.
Boo.
Boo. We love our coax.
Bring it back. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. So, these KVs, they actually did pretty well. But after a while, they eventually morphed into the Model 1940, which is the one we know the most. The KV-1 Model 1940 is also known as the KV-1A. And this is kind of the classic for the early war. Now, I will always say that KVs are underrated and underappreciated by most people. Most people don't really know just how much of an effect KVs had against the Germans.
But the T-34-85.
But the T-34-85, shut up.
So early on into Operation Barbarossa, the Germans were fielding tanks that were equipped with 37mm cannons, short-barreled 75mm cannons. They didn't do a lot against the front of a KV-1. A KV-1A had up to 90mm of armor on the front and 75mm on the sides.
That's not bad.
Yeah. These KV-1s could take a punishing. There's one noticeable case where a single KV-1 stopped I think it was either a company or a division of early Panzer 3s and 4s. It received 139 hits on it without a single round going through the armor.
Didn't they have to bring an 88 on its ass to take it out?
Yes. Eventually, the Germans brought an 88 and cheated, but yeah, a single KV-1 withstood 139 hits on it, and somehow the crew inside were able to function. I'm not sure how. So, but these ones, once the Germans started getting bigger guns, then they needed an upgrade. But these KV-1s, they did a lot in the early war. It was just one of those that wasn't enough. Now, not to say that it was perfect in all ways. Of course it's not. One of the, just looking through my note, trying to find my note. I highlighted it somewhere.
I'm just listening to all the wereabouts coping and seething right now.
So, the 76 it had. This was the KV-1A was finally fielded with the F-32 76.2mm cannon. That's the classic one you see. So it's not the L11 where the gun is low down in the mantlet. This time it's high up in the mantlet. It's the one we know. Now, even though the Germans couldn't punch through the armor, there was still some bad features with it. Now, one of them being it was difficult to steer because it's a big, heavy tank. Big, heavy tanks are just by design difficult to move, but difficult to steer, be heavy, You mean
power steering?
Yeah. Oh. Another thing, the transmission was this was 1940. The transmission design was 20 years old.
What?
It was a 20-year-old designed Holt Caterpillar designed transmission.
They used a Caterpillar tranny in this?
Imagine the FT fucking 17 engine trying to pull that thing.
Yeah.
Cry.
So there were some truth to rumors that Soviet drivers had to change gears using a sledgehammer. That's the only way they could get it to move. Another thing, there was very poor visibility in the tank. There was no periscopes or anything like that. They just had vision slits. And it had no turret basket. One downside to these KV-1s was there was no turret basket. Basically, for anyone who doesn't know that, a turret, when it rotates, you have a basket that everyone stands on, so everyone rotates with it. You can sit down and whatnot. If you were standing, such as for the loader, if you do not have a turret basket, that means that if the turret moves around, you have to follow it, unless you want to get clipped by the cannon or parts moving around. So the poor loader is trying to load some fairly large ammunition into the cannon whilst it's moving, and he's having to try and keep up with it. That was one downside to the early KV-1s. No turret basket.
But they did finally get the hull gunner.
Yep, they did get a hull gunner. And there was another thing that plagued the Germans later on. It was too heavy. And when I say heavy, these early KV-1s were 45 tons, which meant that they couldn't cross a lot of bridges.
Did they ever get issued with any sort of weighting equipment?
No.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Yeah. At the time, at the time of its heyday, we'll call it outweighed anything the Germans had by a lot. So it's actually one of the main reasons why the KV armor wasn't continued on, but we'll talk about that later on, because the KV was improved upon, we'll say, because the Russians didn't have anything better. Later on you get the ISs, but that's quite late in the war they get them. So they're stuck with KV-1s. And, I mean, as much as I bashed the KV-1, it was a good tank. It was just... you had some teething problems.
You needed a lot of improvements.
You will say though, despite all of its problems, it is very much a world beater at the time, especially by 1940 standards. Like, show me a tank in 1940 which can best this. You can't.
Oh no.
Well, Dennis, if you knew, the Germans had paper panzers in 1940. So
I feel like the ghost of Ezra is on with us.
So there were other improvements to the KV-1, but at the time, in 1940, the KV-1 you could consider as the best heavy tank. So, that was the KV-1A. If we go to the next slide, we'll have a look at some of the others.
Ooh, the economy.
So, specifically, on the top left, we have the KV-1E, which has applique armor attached to it.
May I point out an interesting fun fact?
Go for it.
So the T-34, they also actually did the same thing with the T-34. You have the T-34E, and that one they made, I think it was about 200 of them, and almost all of them were lost in one battle.
Yeah, sounds about right. So the E for both the KV-1 and the T-34E is the economy. Economy?
Yeah.
I'll go for it. Which translates to with screens. So it's the KV-1 with screens. These were 20 millimeters of soft steel plated on with bolts, and it added some armor. It'll probably just give you a bit more of a bit more confidence in your tank. I mean, it was still a tank that could stop quite a lot of bloody stuff being thrown at it. It was also they did add some of the thick armor along the front with around. So the total armor thickness along the front ended up being around 110, 120 mil. So about the same as a Tiger 1. So, and you'll notice I actually quite like the look of the KV-1E, just having the armor on the sides with the big bolts. I think it looks really cool.
Definitely a lot more of an aesthetic.
Yep. If we go down to the bottom left, we have the KV-1B. The KV-1B was just a KV-1A upgraded with more armor along the front and sides, and most of the turret was now cast as opposed to welded, as we see on the front one. So it's got more rounded along the back. There's still a little bit of welding on the front, so it's got flat sides on the front, but it's got more of a rounded cast turret, more armor on the front. The one I'm showing here, painted in white, is the one in Bovington, which I've seen up close. This one, just like the Type 95, where they have it closed up for the asbestos, they have this one closed up because of radiation.
Oh, nice.
Very nice.
It was found in, I think it was found around Chernobyl or somewhere high in radiation, and I think it's still inside it. So that one, they can't go inside it.
It'll be fine. Don't worry.
Hey, your skin might fall off.
Where on that tank do you stand? Like, where do your shoulders come to? For you, you're a taller guy.
So that one, I think my shoulders come up to maybe the bottom of the mantlet. It's pretty high. It's a large tank. Yeah.
Question for you, Callum. Since you've seen that one up close, how good was the casting on it? Was it very smooth casting, or was it?
It's pretty rough.
About to say, bro, this is Russia.
Yeah, it's pretty rough casting. So from the KV-1B, we go to the KV-1C, which is top right. That's got the original turret design, but it's fully cast, so it's all rounded, nice, and got those nice curves to it. It's a very curvy tank now. So again, this was also up armored a little bit more. Basically, every variant you go up, they just add a little bit more armor. However, this one was now weighing in at 48 tons, as opposed to 40. Or was it 40 or 45? Did I say?
It was a lot. Let's put it that way.
45 tons. They've added on another 3 ton. Now, to combat this, one of the main criticisms was it was getting very heavy but the armor wasn't doing enough. So basically, you're checking on armor that wasn't doing anything, and the tank was getting too heavy. This led on to the KV-1S, which is known as the fast one. So bottom right. This has got a completely different cast turret. It's got a very different design. As you can see, the mantlet is a bit more closed in. It's a different design. So the KV-1S, they redesigned the entire turret, and it ended up having less. It had less armor all around, but it was a faster tank.
How much faster are we talking here? Like a considerable difference, or just a couple kilometers an hour?
1 moment. I've got it in my notes somewhere. Do an S, and it is. It allowed a top speed of 43.3 kilometers an hour.
Well, that's not bad for such a big thing.
Yeah. So it was made lighter to how many ton? And I cannot find it in my notes. That's annoying. Why didn't I write it down? That was silly.
Google.
Yeah. But basically, the KV-1S was lightening the load, making it faster. It was still more expensive than a T-34-76 at this point for basically the same performance. It performed the same as a T-34 at this point, but it was more expensive to make as opposed to a T-34-76, which was cheaper, had the same firepower, same armor, same speed. It was kind of that was a downfall.
Yeah, and the Soviets weren't really in the habit of, say, spending more money or more time to make something that, has
a life expectancy of a day.
Yeah.
Here it is. Total weight of the KV-1S, 42 tons. So from the KV-1C to the S, they've managed to remove 5 tons from it, which is pretty good.
I mean, you can see the casting gets more advanced there.
Yeah. The armor did go down from around 110, 120 to around 75 millimeters. But at that point, now the Germans are bringing in guns that can penetrate 120, it doesn't really matter if you've got 120 or 75 millimeters. It's still going to go through. So you might as well cut on the armor and save it for speed.
The KV-1 Super Lagara. Okay. So we've got those.
So those are the KV-1s.
Oh, yeah.
Now we've got the big boy. The absolute monster. The behemoth. The KV-2. Now, a lot of people don't know this. There were 2 types of KV-2s.
What?
Yes, you had the standard KV-2 with the 152mm howitzer. The one that everyone knows and loves so dearly. Excuse me. And then you had the KV-2 ZIS-6. This was a prototype tank. It was a prototype for a super heavy tank, and it had a 107mm cannon. And as you can see on the bottom right, I've managed to find a photo of that thing firing. It looks awesome.
Wow.
That is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So why did they go with the 152 over the 107? Do you know?
The 107 was only ever a prototype. The 152, the idea of the KV-2 was not for tank on tank. The KV-2 was brought along by the Winter War in Finland, or the continuation, depends on which side you're on. Specifically on the Mannerheim line. They needed heavy howitzers to get through a lot of the concrete structures, bunkers, stuff like that. Now, instead of, and this was also to support KV-1s that were assaulting these positions. Now, instead of using a traditional SPG and like an SU-122 or something like that, they decided to stick a 152mm howitzer on a KV-1 with a massive turret. Now, whilst the howitzer could do a lot of damage, the KV-2 wasn't that good. one of the main things was if it was not on even ground, like if it was on a slope, you could not turn the turret at all. You could not rotate it. You couldn't use it, which is one of the downfalls. That's one of the main problems. Was it was too top heavy, it had no lateral stability whilst crossing slope terrain. Yeah, it's impractical. It looks awesome, but it's impractical.
Maybe for like paved roads for like a town assault, that'd be great. But yeah, not for fucking
especially
open
when
ground.
you consider how many actual paved roads there were in the Soviet Union.
Exactly. Yeah. Like we got Moscow, Stalingrad a little bit. Like, boom.
Yeah. So basically, the KV-2 was designed as a heavy assault, but it basically, I mean, they still built a lot. They actually, like, all these tanks, they did build a lot of them. So,
like, how many are we talking about here?
Let's see. Let's look at the numbers. Now, the KV-1 in total, except for the KV-1S. So we got the KV-1A, B, E, C. A grand total of 3,193. The KV-2, the KV-2 they made 210. The KV-1S they made 1,085. So, respectable numbers. Now, later, getting on in the war around 1942-43, it was being found that the 76.2mm cannon, as good as it was, just wasn't doing enough. It wasn't. Now you're coming up against Tiger 1s, Panthers, stuff like that. So there was an idea to upgrade the KV-1 with an 85. Is it a DT-10?
The DT-10's a 100. I think it's...
what's the DT-5? D5T, sorry. D5T. So basically they wanted to put an 85 into the KV-1. So they redid the entire turret in order to fit. So it's a cast turret. It's big, rounded. You'll notice it looks very similar to another tank, but we'll talk about that in a sec.
I want to say the name, Callum. Let me say the name.
But the amount of this, it also got a significant armor upgrade with up to 160 millimeters of armor. It's not clear whether it's on the front thick or on the mantlet, but that is still an impressive number. Now, there weren't many KV-85s made, only about 148. Now, the reason for this is it was a stopgap. The Soviets were looking for tanks that could take out German heavy tanks, but had better reliability, better design, and all that. And the KV-1, the design was getting a little bit old at this time. So they moved on to what we all know as the IS or JS, depending on your pronunciation, the IS series of tanks. However, if we go to the next slide, you'll notice one thing. You've got a KV-85 and an IS-1. You see just how similar it is. An IS-1, in the entire IS series, IS-1, IS-2, and IS-3 are basically KV tanks.
The only thing I see here that's dramatically different is the suspension layout, and that's it.
Even then, it's incredibly similar.
Pretty similar, though.
A little bit in the front hole there. But yeah, that's...
Yeah, like there's some minor flaws, like minor changes. Just go to my IS-1 notes. Where are they?
So when did you say this bad boy came around, the IS-1?
43.
43? Okay.
Yeah.
Man,
But basically, the interiors of an IS-1, 2, and 3 are KV. The transmissions are the same, engine's the same, gearbox is the same. A lot of things inside it it is basically KV with slight variances on the outside to make it look IS-1 and IS-1, IS-2, and IS-3. Because you have the KV-85 and the IS-1 both have the 85 D5T cannon. The IS-2 has the 122. Originally, it was designed to fit the 122 cannon onto a KV-85, making it a KV-122. However, because of the reasons before, they changed it to the IS series, and KVs were relegated to more reserve forces and stuff like that. I mean, they'll still used quite late into the war. They're still fairly effective.
There was some kicking around in 45, actually.
Oh, yeah.
I was about to say, didn't they use them during the assault on Berlin? I think I was in a picture of
There
one.
was a couple, yeah.
I mean, if you've got them, use them.
There were a
About to
couple
say,
of A model KV ones that still survived. Only like a handful, but there were.
Yeah. I mean, KV is still being used. It's just now there is another variant of the KV. We go to the next one. Everyone knows the ISU-152, the giant assault tank, whatever you want to call it. Well, there was also the SU-152. And basically, I've named it as the KV getting its 152mm back in a more appropriate manner.
Isn't this the one that they just recently pulled out of retirement in Ukraine? Like 2 days ago?
I would not be surprised.
They literally ran it for the first time since fucking, I think it was 46, they said.
Probably be more effective than what the Russians are using right now.
Well, yeah.
Actually,
I think it's Ukrainians using it.
Yeah.
It's perfect. It's a super weapon then.
You imagine that 152 hitting like a T90 dead on?
Oh my god!
I'd love to watch
Farewell,
that.
T90.
Yeah. So basically, SU-152 turned a KV-1 into a proper assault tank. You remove the turret and modify the hull into what's the style of tank called? It's got a name for it.
Casemate SPG.
That's the one. Casemate. You basically
dog.
Yeah.
Don't summon him.
He'll hear us. But yeah, you basically turn a KV-1 into a casemate with a 152 sticking out the front that can demolish anything from tanks to concrete to entire buildings, as the role of an assault tank is.
Love the muzzle brake on that. Look at that.
Oh yeah, I love the muzzle brake. They look awesome.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but this could shoot high velocity, right? Or it was high velocity?
Not sure.
That is a good question.
But it's like, it wouldn't surprise me if it was only like low velocity type shit. But like, imagine a 152 high velocity gun in fucking World War II. Like that's heavier than what we use now. And of course, I know this is not a combat tank on tank vehicle, but
Hey, if it does the job, then what more can you ask for?
Oh, I completely agree. Yeah, if it can do it, then it can fucking do it. But I bet that thing was fun to turn too.
Oh, can you imagine?
I'd rather not. The thing is, ugh.
At least the center of gravity would be lower. That's one thing it's got going for it.
That's true. And it's got some pretty wide tracks, so.
Well, that was one of the things I noticed about the KV-1s is that even from the very start, they had nice wide tracks, which was ahead of their time.
Yes.
Callum, you alive?
Yep. Sorry. I was letting you guys talk,
Oh.
Oh, Callum.
Weirdos. I was just reviewing my notes while letting you talk. Oh, here it is. So these things didn't just have high explosive rounds, believe it or not. They also had the BR-541 solid core armor piercing round.
Yes.
Oh my god.
Now, it was a low velocity gun, not a high velocity.
Ugh.
It's alright, don't worry about it.
Hey, it's got fucking AP.
Yeah. I mean, these solid cores, I think, were better for concrete than high explosive.
Yeah,
they're known as anti-concrete rounds.
I mean, just looking at that thing, I feel like they could add some plates to the side to go horizontal, and so infantry could hide behind it, and then just fucking shoot at bunkers and shit. Yeah.
Now, the SU-152 was remained in service until 1958, until now. And they actually used these as part of the cleanup and demolition operations for the Chernobyl disaster. Probably because it's got so much
heavily shielded.
Yeah, it's got enough steel between you and radiation. You should be all right. And if we go to the next slide, the Germans
summoned him.
The Germans used the KV-1.
Oh God!
Of course they did.
This is known as the Panzerkampfwagen KV-1B 756R. Now, this is a bit of a mystery. There's a bit of a debate over why the Germans did this. Usually, all you do if you captured a vehicle was you spray painted it your own colours, you put your own insignias on, so your own army didn't shoot at it. The Germans would then give it a name, and they have an interesting way of naming their Butte Panzers, as they're called. You see on this one, KV-1B 756R.
Russian?
Yep. They had this, you'll notice for all captured tanks, they have a letter at the end denoting which country they've come from. So E comes from England.
What could the Germans have stole from the English?
They usually stole Churchill's.
Don't remind me.
Now,
Dunkirk.
The reason this is a mystery, why they did this, usually when you do capture a tank and you repaint it your own colours, that's as far as you go with modification. However, what they did with this one was they removed the 76.2mm F-32 cannon, and they had to, they put in the Pack 40, 70mm? 75mm?
Pack 40, yeah.
Yep. So they put in a Pack 40 75mm cannon. But what this does is they had to modify the mantlet so it could accept the gun, and they also put a new commander's cupola on top of the turret.
So you've made essentially a discount Panther.
Yes.
Honestly, yeah, that's kind of what it is.
It's probably better than the original Panthers anyways.
Probably, to be honest.
At least the transmission doesn't break every 100 kilometers.
It's a 10-year-old transmission, remember?
But it's a 20-year-old Soviet transmission, which means that it's probably still functional today.
I mean, as long
as you got a sledgehammer, so you can shift gears, yeah.
Exactly.
But this is the photo on the left is the only known photo of this KV-1B.
Wow.
And the reason is, no one's sure why the Germans did it. It's to redesign the mantlet, to accept the new gun. It's a lot of work when you've already got a lot of work for your own tanks to do out in the field. So there's big speculation on why they did it. No one's really sure. It's a lot of time, effort, and resources to modify someone else's tank for your own means. Hence why it wasn't done a lot. Yeah. So hence why it wasn't well known. Because they only ever did it once. Because
that's why Tamiya hasn't made one.
Hasn't made one yet.
Yeah.
Well, one thing I do remember is I remember reading about how the German High Command was so enthralled with the T-34 that's one of the things that led to the Panther getting developed. I wonder if the idea with this was almost to see if they could, kind of get with field trials an idea of just how the Russian army performed, so that they could then develop their own counter to it more effectively.
Maybe.
I will say this: Panther was not designed because of the T-34.
Well, don't I sound stupid then?
Yeah. Sorry about that. It's a misconception that the Panther was already in design before the T-34s were known about. The T-34s basically sped up the production of Panthers, hence why they weren't that good at the start.
I'm about to drop the W word on you, Callum.
What?
They're wearaboo. How do you know this?
Chieftain.
Oh, fair enough. Nah, you're chill then. I know you were smooth like that.
I'll link your video. He did a very good. He does these videos, top five facts that you don't know about certain tanks, and one of them was the Panther.
And I'll watch that then.
Oh, you should. They're actually really good. Seriously, they're a good series. They've got, because he's also done Churchill, M18. Yeah, there's some good ones.
Shout out to Chieftain.
Yep.
If you're listening to this, come join our podcast.
One day we'll get him on.
While we're on the subject of Daddy Moran, I just want to point out that his latest video actually does feature the KV-1 when he went to the Finnish Armor Museum.
I think that was the one that that KV-1E?
Yeah, I think that was the
That's the one. Yeah. Actually, the Finnish captured a lot of KV-1s as well to use. So, might as well. You got him.
The Finns did a lot that the Russians don't like to admit.
Yeah. And if we go to the next slide.
Yes.
Because we've just heard all about the KV-1 and 2 and 85.
They're beautiful.
You probably want to build them.
Absolutely. Why wouldn't you?
Now, the two main companies. Pardon?
I'm looking at those 48th scale models because lately I've been getting into that. Those look nice.
Yeah, apparently the KV-1s at 48 are good. So, Tamiya do a whole bunch of KV-1s. They do a KV-1, the standard KV-1 model 1941. So that is a KV-1 B. That is a no, we'll C. No, it's not a C because it's cast. But they do KV-1 Type C, as you can see with the cast turret. This KV-1B, I have this kit. It's a very good kit. However, I think they've done it wrong. KV-1B did not...
Impossible. No.
Well, you look at it, that is the applique armor of a KV-1E.
No, this can't be right. I'm Googling KV-1Bs right now. No, this can't be right.
This is going to be good.
No.
Ladies and gentlemen, on this podcast, you are now hearing Dennis have a meltdown. I did warn him beforehand, but...
I'm looking on War Thunder right now, and the KV-1B does have applique armor.
Well, that's War Thunder, so...
Yeah,
I'm also looking here at... Let me see if I can find another one.
You're like the Russians scrambling for facts that aren't there.
I've gone full copium. Okay, well, all I can find to support my theory here is a War Thunder model. But I will say, I will contest this. War Thunder, the Russians are saying... No, they're Hungarian. The Hungarians are saying that their Tamiya is right. Callum is saying they're wrong.
I know which way you're going to go with.
And so begins the great proxy war between Hungary and New Zealand.
I mean, the KV-1B did have applique armor, but not that. It didn't look like that. Because I'm looking at pictures now. They do have bolts on them, but that is KV-1E applique armor.
Well, we shall see.
We'll see when someone comes on the comments and abuses me and calls me names I probably have heard multiple times.
That person is me, Callum.
I'm about to say, Dennis is about to make a new fucking YouTube account and just do that.
Yeah. And, of course, they also have their KV-2 kit, which has just been released... Is that this year? Or last year?
I think it was early this year.
Yeah. I know that was the buzz for a while.
Yeah. Well, it's got... You know what the thing with that one was? The barrel. It's got rifling on the inside, and it's one piece.
And a plastic or metal?
Plastic.
Ooh.
Wait, you're telling me...
One piece with rifling.
Yeah, I don't know how they did it. It's slide molding, obviously, but that's... To me, it's getting better. They're catching on.
You're telling me that Tamiya did that KV-2 this year, or a year ago?
I think it was early this year.
I swear I've seen that box art for the past, almost 2 years.
I'm just wondering if has that got rubber band tracks?
No. So both the new KV-1 model 1941, that is actually a kit which the KV-2 is built off of. It's got the same hull.
Yeah.
They are link and length tracks, and they capture the sag beautifully.
Thank Christ.
It is fantastic. And the tracks take about 5 minutes per side to build.
That's not
I want to
bad.
get that KV-1.
I will say I've built it. It's fantastic. I highly recommend it.
I'll have to snag it.
One piece barrel on that too.
Ooh, nice.
And good casting textures. You don't even really need to add anything.
Look at you go, Tamiya. Going off.
If you go to the next slide. Trumpeter do a whole bunch. And when I say a whole bunch, they have 2 slides. Because they also show a lot of prototypes of different KV-1s. KVs. Now, just like seeing bottom right, you have the KV-8S, which is basically a KV-1 with the what do they call it? The OTS. Where is it? The OTO 41 flamethrower in the turret, because the KV1 isn't badass enough.
That would be pretty cool to make that with going over like a German trench, looking over to the left or right, and throwing flames in as infantry cross on the opposite side.
Yep, and as you see on the bottom left, they have the KV220, which was to turn the KV1 into a super heavy using, I think that's the 107.
Okay.
And if we go to the next slide, there's even more.
The 107 was a prototype for the KV2, right?
Yeah. There's this 6.
Look at that KV7. That looks so funny.
Oh, the Object 227. So I found interesting notes on that. So it was also known as the U-13. It was an experimental self-propelled gun with 100 mil of frontal armor. And depending on the if it was an early or late one, had 3 cannons, 2 45s and a 76. And there was one unit produced and tested in 1941 of that. So, yeah, the KV7 is it's a weird design, but it looks cool. Trumpeter also have the KV122, which is basically an IS-2.
As you do.
I've got the SU-152, early and late. I've actually got the top right one is the one that I've got that I'm going to build. That one's going to be cool. They have, just for Ezra, they have the captured KV-1B with the PAC-40 in it.
Oh, of course.
Just for him.
They made one kit of that.
Yeah. Now, there was also plans to turn the KV into super heavies, hence the KV-5 on the left there. That's got a machine gun turret in the front, a bit like the Ram and the 107.
They're devolving back to the T-35.
We've gone too far forward, now we're going back. And yeah. And also you have the KV-3 there, which was another super heavy prototype. But that is the KV series.
Amazing, Callum. Thank
Very
you so
nice.
much.
Yeah, good stuff, man. Good stuff.
So the KV was my original favorite tank, and it kind of still is. So
we're just going to have a short intermission. Then afterwards,
tank.
We'll be going through this week's hobby news.
It's got a classic
After that,
tank
our
look
usual
to it.
works in progress.
Yeah,
to cap off this episode, Greg is going to go through his top 5 models in great detail.
Voices
so I hope you stick around and enjoy the rest of the episode.
And now it is time to do the hobby news.
You know,
Greg,
one thing I will...
disrespectful son of a bitch.
Oh,
I'm sorry, I can't help myself.
Callum, I want to schwack this guy so hard right now.
Oh, same here. Same here. You know, one thing I do like about our hobby, the fact that I get a lot of people asking, is our hobby actually, big? Is there a lot of people who do it? Is it like popular? And I tell them every week we can record an episode and there's new releases. It kind of tells you something, isn't it?
We're kind of in the golden age of hobby modeling, because you think about, maybe, I don't know, people say it's smaller than it used to be. I don't think so, but like we get new kits, and they're good ones, every basically day.
Yeah. There's new releases, new announcements, new companies starting. Like, since we all started modeling, 2-3 years ago?
Yeah, about that.
On average? Yeah. How many new companies have come out during that time?
I mean, you think even like when I started, Border wasn't a thing, and now look at it.
Border, Rifle, Copper State, Das.
Even TACOM wasn't as big as it is now.
Yeah, TACOM was still pretty small. Das Werk wasn't round, I think.
Mini-Art, actually, they've only gotten big a couple of years before we got into this.
Yeah. It's impressive.
Well, on that note, speaking of impressive, we've got the first press build photos of the Comet.
Yes.
That looks so good.
I cannot wait to be one of the millions to buy this thing.
I remember on the Discord how people were saying like this had a 2-part barrel, and how incensed I was getting because I was like, it's clearly not a 2-part barrel. It's got a 2-part muzzle brake. I had to
I'm
die
sorry.
I had to die on my sword to defend Mr. Tamiya's honor.
Well, a muzzle brake is fine. You can do something about that. Barrel, yeah. I mean, I know I've sanded at least one barrel to the point where it's got a flat edge on it.
Yeah.
Must be Horizon Islands Defense Forces.
I love how that's become like just a big part of the server now.
Yeah.
Well, and if you aren't already aware, a new rule is if you've got a kit that is so bad you don't want to build it, you are required by law to build it as an HIDF vehicle. You can't get out of it. There's no way. You must.
And for anyone who's listening, if you want to join the it's not a group build as such, it's more of a
it's a law. It's a lifestyle.
It's a law.
If you want to add to the world that is Horizon Islands, reach out to us with your submissions on it, or even just tag us in a post. Join the Discord or tag us in a post on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all of that.
Anything goes.
Yep.
Yeah, literally, it can be anything.
So don't let some gatekeeping cunt tell you otherwise.
IPMS.
Facebook.
I like how we say that, and yet on Twitter we actually follow IPMS USA. And that's after we have that post saying our thoughts on IPMS, and then just cunts.
That is the official position. Well, speaking of we've got a new bridge carrying 251 from Dragon. I know it says DOS work on the box, but it's a Dragon kit. You can't convince me otherwise.
Okay, so what is that? The bridge thing they're talking about? Like what's going on?
It's a Pioneer Bridge. So basically, the idea of it is, if you had to cross a small creek or a very small river, you could put those on, and you could just drive anything over it. It's the bridge is the width of the tracks on the 251, so any 251 could drive over it.
251, no like water.
Exactly.
Damn Krauts.
What are you afraid of a little H2O?
I do like the those sharpened stakes and the foliage on the front there. I wonder if that comes with the kit, or you'd have to do that yourself.
I've looked at the CAD data. I don't believe it does.
What?
Sadly.
Oh, if they supplied that, it would just do so well.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool.
Except for the engine. It won't be cool because, you're covering the radiator.
Don't worry about that, Callum.
Who needs that?
Speaking of radiators, Mini Art has been undeterred by the Vatniks. They're coming out with a new kit, and this one is for civilian drivers and 35th scale from the 1930s and 40s. I want it.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, you could put it with one of your tractor models, and they'd look quite nice, I think. Dude, that chick on the bottom left. So you've seen those pictures of like British soldiers on like street corners with like a Bren gun or something, and there's some French lady behind him pouring him tea. I want to make that scene. Get some like 3D printed teacups or something.
Yeah, or you could probably paint them up as an MTC as well.
You've lost this, bud.
MTC. That MTC is what Queen Elizabeth II was in during the Second World War.
God rest her soul.
Yep. Well, she was in the MTC.
Best ambulance driver ever.
Yeah.
And I thought this might be of interest to you guys. So remember how we talked about the TACOM VT12 in an earlier episode?
Yep.
Well, now we actually have a photo of one in the flesh. This is one of the early production kits that's being built up.
I want that thing so much.
I like the Bundeswehr fucking cross. It looks so good. It's a very nice looking tank.
Nah, if I got it, I wouldn't do the Bundeswehr. I'll do it as a Canadian what if.
Well, I think I told you guys, this was seriously
considered to be going to Afghanistan.
That's why I want to do it. Canadian what if? What if they had the VT?
Fuck looked at that? Who looked at that and was like, "Yeah, let's send that to fucking Afghanistan"?
Don't worry about it. It will be fine.
Fucking idiots, dude! Oh my god.
That's the thing. That's the thing. The enemy will see it and spend the whole time going, "What the fuck is that?"
They're pulling out like their identification books, trying to figure out what they're dealing with.
It's like, bring up Google on the phone. Come on, where is it?
Google on the IED phone.
They've only got Yahoo and they can't find it.
Border Model is releasing some figures for their 35th scale U-boat. There's both ones with the 88mm and loading a torpedo.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, their figures are pretty nice too, apparently.
They look it. I do like this this new thing of getting sections and making them 35. So, you know, our 35th scale U-boat would be massive. I'd love to have one, but, you know. But just making sections and bringing them up to a bigger scale for more detail is actually a really cool thing. If they, you know, they've been doing that with like the turrets of battleships and, you know, making them larger size. I do like this new way of modeling. I think it looks really cool.
It's very diorama focused, which I like.
Yeah.
And yet all the boomers are like, "Oh, the modeling's dying off." Ugh.
Yeah, but
guys, haven't you heard? It'll be gone by 2010.
See, do you know what I'd really like to have as something like this? You know, the 8-barrel 40mm pom-pom anti-aircraft cannons? One of those in 35th scale would be so cool.
Ooh, yeah.
We also got the
chart
for the M48 from TACOM.
Ooh, yeah.
I want that.
Guess what?
The Vietnam version.
Fun fact. Link tracks.
Oof. TACOM ones aren't that bad.
Wait, you said they're what tracks?
Indie Link.
Have fun. They're not that bad. Although they did release a set of rules when building this M48A3 in the Vietnam. You must have Paint It Black or Fortunate Son playing in the background whilst doing it. It's a requirement.
Wait, hold on.
No, don't play it. I see. Whatever you do, don't play it. Otherwise, I have to block it because we'll get copyright. What are you saying, Dennis?
Horizon Islands. This is the best Horizon Islands thing I've ever seen.
Dude, instead of putting the tracks on it, I'm gonna have all the wheels off of it. Have like some kind of like makeshift portable fucking bottom, as if like a fucking forklift came over and picked it up.
It's a boat. I'm gonna turn mine into a boat.
Oh god.
Well, it's got the rounded hull.
Well, you guys know those Shermans that you know the Japanese amphibious tanks where they had like the big pontoon like front and rear hull that they could just discard once they got on land, and it literally turned them into a boat.
Yep.
That's what I'm doing here. You better believe it's happening.
Coastal defense.
That's exactly what I'm thinking, dude. I keep getting all these ideas for that fucking Horizon Island infantry build.
It's the lifestyle. IBJ in 1:72 scale has released a Centaur dozer tank.
And I also want that for my Horizon Island infantry defense build.
It's kind of just turning into sort of a state of mind almost.
Honestly, like think about
it. It's a way of life.
That could be digging out a dugout to put my M48 that has no wheels.
Exactly.
Like it's fucking perfect.
It'll just look weird because it'll be weird different scales.
Don't worry about it.
Wait, that is 172. Fuck, never mind. Oh, I can make it like a miniature fucking one. I can open up the top, put in some fucking printed seats or whatever.
Ooh, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
And that was the hobby news. And now it's time to talk about our works in progress.
My favorite part of the segment. All right, so this is mine. The first one here is about my T62. I've been pretty busy the past 2-3 weeks, so I haven't done too much modeling, but I have started adding water for this diorama. I was really insecure about adding that masking tape. I thought it would leak a lot, but it only leaked in like 2 spots very slowly, and it was a pretty easy fix. Got about 3, maybe 4 more layers of water, and I'll be done with the water. I made some where I made a mini art roadblock, and I put in some native language from I think it's New Georgian. It says halt, flooding ahead, and then the emergency contact number for the area, because it's the beginning of a swamp. And yeah, that's kind of where it's at right now. Really happy with the progress, and it's been a blast working on it. So
it's looking good, man.
Thank you.
The T55 is going to have to go on with a similar base. That just looks so good.
Thanks. I remember whenever you first showed off your T55, and you were talking about the type of base you wanted to put it in with like next to a river and shit. I couldn't help myself. I had to steal the idea.
It just looks good, and you can also hide because like the tracks on that kit, I guess, weren't the best. Who cares? Because now you won't even see half of them.
Yeah, after working with the tracks a little bit, like I was able, especially with the Challenger 2 armor, it works pretty good. They aren't too bad.
100%.
But like I got to go back in, and where you can see it from the top there on the right hand side where all that corrosion is above the tracks, I need to go in and make them super shiny and make them look like they just went through water.
That's going to be amazing, man.
Thanks. All right, next is what I'm actually working on right now. My commission build for the Normandy D-Day diorama. So this is a commission build for a history professor out in Louisiana, and basically it's going to be somewhere probably around St. Mary Glees or some shit, and it's going to be a little road, hedgerows on each side, major tree in the center, next to some cornrows with a dead paratrooper. Took Night Shift's idea for the stone walls, since they're so small, do some experimenting. I really like how those came out, and then I started painting the German figures. I got, if you look at the top left, I'll go from left to right. It's a Italian camo that the SS took. First guy has a regular Stahlhelm. Second guy has a P-Dot helmet cover. Third guy has a P-Dot blouse and helmet cover. And then the fourth guy just has a oak leaf A pattern tunic.
That looks amazing, man. I love those helmet covers.
Thanks. Those were really fun. It really helps, too, whenever they mold in the actual helmet cover. It makes it more believable.
Yeah. How the hell do you actually manage to get paint camo that small?
Patience. Honestly, like, it's... I know looking at it, it looks really intimidating because it took me like a week to actually do it. Because I don't know if y'all seen my very first ever attempt at P-Dot, but it was fucking awful. That was when I first got into the hobby, and I just rushed it, and it was horrible. So after watching some videos, looking at reference photos on Arma 3, looking at people building it and shit, I went ahead and tried it myself. And honest to God, it did not take that long. Like the coat, minus the drying time, maybe 30 minutes.
Oh yeah, it's not bad.
Nah. Especially only having 4 Germans, and then I would go from I started with the P-Dot uniform and did the base coat, went to the oak leaf, did the base coat, and then went to the other 2 and did those base coats. And by the time I did that, the P-Dot was ready for the next color. So it's just a cycle like that, and you can get it done, 2.5 hours.
This is going to be what I've been up to. Sadly,
what is this?
University has begun, which means model machine broke. No model.
Oh no.
Instead we're working on code, which is fun, but
so
it's not modeling.
17.
However, because the tank museum, they built a new bike path that goes through the airport, so now I can get to the tank museum in between classes, and I got to go and peep out their newest cop. They got some sick new wheels. It's the T72 from CFB Valcartier. It's very nice.
Imagine they yoinked one from Ukraine.
Dude, yeah, they just, the Ontario Regiment's just buying up T72s and T90s from the farmers.
It wouldn't surprise me if they did, honestly. Give it a year or 2.
Anticipate that. Yeah.
They're going to be getting some German fucking armor that got sent over there to be used, and it's gonna be in the fucking tank museum as a Ukrainian piece. It's gonna be awesome.
I will say one thing that struck me immediately. This thing is so short.
Yeah.
Like, I come up to about maybe here.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Pretty small tanks.
Well, because that was Soviet doctrine at the time.
I guarantee
at the time, it still is.
I would rather be in this any day over this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you probably wouldn't have the turret fucking fly off in the Sherman versus it's that 72.
That's the thing, you know. This thing has what stowage? This thing does not.
Honestly, like, where are you going to put the stowage?
My brother, you are the stowage.
Oh no.
So this is what I'm working on at the moment. This is my Tamiya Jagdpanther, the very old kit. So I'm just trying to clear a bit of backlog at the moment before I start my group build. So yeah, but thought I'd get a bit interesting with this one, going with the old red oxide and Dunkelgelb with a bit of stripes, and yeah, so it's a pretty fun kit at the moment. I'm just making it all dirty. I've got all the parts that I want on it, so now I'm just doing the weathering on it, and it'll be all good. Next one is I finally got my submission for the artillery group build in last week. I was a little bit late, but you know, I had reasons.
Yeah, that's all right.
So this is the Tamiya Type 1 SPG, the Honey. I've still got the figures to paint. I'm calling it done for now, but I might go back to it. Get some bushes on the front to hide that heinous gap in the armor along the front. But yeah, otherwise,
very nice, dude. Very nice.
I think was it you, Dennis, that was asking how I did the dusting on it, or
yes, I did.
Literally just I mixed burnt umber pigment and Vietnam land pigments together, and then with soft brush, literally just sort of like dry brushed it over everything.
Yep, I've done that before. That looks really good, though.
By Callum, Vietnam dust is supposed to be not that color.
Did I mention I'm a geologist?
Oh dear.
Did I tell you I served in Vietnam?
I take it that's a Facebook argument you once had?
Kit maker too.
Oh, go figure.
Oh, the internet.
But yeah, so that's my works in progress for now, because I haven't actually been building a lot, because my main work in progress has been renovating my bathroom.
You'll have to show us pictures of that once it's done.
Yes. Before and after, maybe.
Yeah. I've got some before photos, yeah.
So we're going to do something a bit different. Instead of having a model discussion, Garrison has decided to show us his top 5 models.
Yes. Looking forward to doing this kind of last moment thing, but it was a nice last moment thing. I love talking about my models, so let's get right into it. All right, so this isn't in any particular order, but I will say my Greyhound is one of my top favorites. The Tamiya M8 Greyhound just recently did this for my push on Cherbourg diorama. If you'd like to see the full thing, check out my Instagram or YouTube at Greg's Diorama Scale Models. But yeah, nice little kit, went together great. Loved adding all the stowage, all the little details on the inside, making it nice and dirty. It's been a dirty little Greyhound. So
what do you think of the kit? Because I know Don is working on one as well, eh?
Yeah, he's doing that Canadian fucking general's personal vehicle from Korea, which Don is doing great, especially all the fucking scratch building he has to do. He's doing awesome. I really enjoyed the kit. Like I said, it went together really well. You could, if you needed to do like a column, like U.S. armored column in like Normandy or some shit, and you wanted to build like 3 of these, you could definitely do it. No problem whatsoever. It's besides being a little repetitive because it's building the same thing, it's easy enough to do that it wouldn't be too taxing. And it fits well, so there's no it's Tamiya, right? You're not going to have to sand anything down crazy or fill in gaps or anything like that. Everything fits like fucking perfect.
Still love the foliage you add to that. That looks amazing, man.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm glad I did it. At first, I didn't know if I was going to add it or not, and then I asked you guys, and y'all were like, definitely.
So. We'll always say yes. Should I add this? Yes.
I needed that encouragement. I'll be honest, I was kind of ready for it to be done, but yeah, definitely glad I added that foliage. It just looks so much better. All right, next is one of my favorite tanks of all time. It's the EZ8. This is the Tamiya Korean War Rice's Red Devils variant. I did a Operation Ripper diorama, as you can see there. Once again, if you want to see any of my builds, my YouTube and Instagram, go check that out. But this was right before I learned about microsole and microset, or how the fuck you say it. And so the decals are pretty shiny, and I didn't tie down the stowage. So I'll probably go back through once I get to Kansas and kind of fix up my old kits, add some tie downs, try and see if I can revive those fucking decals, make them not so shiny. But yeah, like every other Tamiya kit out there, for the most part, this thing went together easy. The tracks are rubber, but they were not a problem. They fit perfectly. It came with a pretty decent amount of stowage. The figures were really fun to work with. Don't see a lot of Korean War stuff, so it was nice to play around. All right, next is another Tamiya kit.
Another Sherman.
Yeah, another Sherman.
Is there a bit of a theme here, Greg?
Well, I am American, so it just makes sense. But yeah, just especially the Tamiya stuff, like they give you so much to work with, especially in terms of stowage. So this was my Battle of the Bulge diorama Siege of Bastogne that I did, and this was the Tamiya M4 Sherman. Really fun. This was done with a spray can, wooden deck stain. Some not very good stuff to work with, but it was fun. I had a good time doing it. The fit was nice. The stowage was fun to mess with and try out. And it's a Sherman. You can do literally just about anything with a Sherman. Super classic tank from World War II. So.
Yeah, there's one good thing about making a Sherman is you can just do so much with it. I do like this. What do you use for the snow?
It's that fuck. Let's see. It's the stuff I recently bought that I showed you guys in the chat. It's in the Battle of the Bulge Artillery Group build info. Forgot what it's called, but it's a snow powder, and it's actual powder. It's not like fucking the army painter bullshit where it's like beads and bounces everywhere. This stuff you spray like a little bit of Mod Podge down, like 1 or 2 little squirts, and then you sprinkle this stuff on top of it, and then 1 squirt above that, leave it for like 20 minutes, it won't move. Like it just fucking sits there. And it's amazing. It's in scale for just about anything. The only problem is if you're trying to make big mounds of it, you need a good amount. But for what I did there, it was not a problem at all.
Yeah, that looks nice. I do have a bias for snow dioramas.
They are fun. I'm looking forward to doing my 251.
Oh, this is my favorite. Look at that.
So this is my...
This makes me feel bad about my own R35.
I know, right?
You guys are too kind.
I'll admit this on the podcast. When I first saw this, I got so fucking jealous. I was like, how the fuck did he manage to get the camo like that? Yeah.
When I first started building this kit, I stopped halfway because, for one, the diorama, I just didn't know, I was too intimidated by the backdrop. I didn't want to deal with it. And then I was really intimidated by the camo because I didn't have a working airbrush at the time, and I didn't want to fuck up, with hand painting. Which is funny because most of that is hand painted, with the exception of the green and the little tan color. The rest of it was pretty much hand painted, very light coats, and the R35 fit together really well. The tracks were, Link tracks, awesome stuff. No, it's Tamiya. Like I said again, it's just Tamiya.
Yeah.
Not too much you can do for like stowage wise. So I got some aftermarket. I say aftermarket. I got a chain from Michaels and put on the front. I got a French wannabe Bren gun. I don't know what the fuck it's called, and an ammo box and some French equipment put on the right hand side. The only spot really that you can put stowage, and did that, and it's kind of the first time I actually learned how to use microsol and microset. So the decals came out really well, and I actually got my first award with this tank. Got 3rd place. So.
Oh,
it's amazing how such a simple kit has made so many people so happy.
Yeah,
dude, it's fun. Like, it's such a sweet little deal, and I mean, there's multiple French variants of this thing you can do, like the color scheme. There's the German ones you can do. And then, didn't they casemate these after the war?
They did, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I want to get some more of these in the Sharpie 1. I want to make it kind of like CW modeling, like Chalky's doing right now. He's doing that Sharpie 1 dio. I want to do that.
Yeah, because what you could also do is, if you're down to scratch build, you could turn it into the R35, which has the Hotchkiss 37mm in it. It's got a different mantlet and barrel in it.
I'm getting to that point, or I am at that point in my modeling journey that I am definitely okay with taking my time on models. So scratch building things like that, I think, is going to become more common in my future. So I'll definitely have to try that out. And this is also my first time using pigments, so that was fun.
Yeah. It looks... Again, like I said, first time I saw it, I was just like... It's like, that looks really good, and fuck you, but also, that looks good.
Well, whenever I first joined the podcast crew, I was listening to the episodes right before I joined the Discord. I was listening to the first 3 episodes while finishing building this tank. And then I saw, you guys sent y'all's in the group chat before I painted mine. I was like, "Fuck, I gotta meet their expectation." Because I tell you, I put this thing on the backlog for like 6 months because I was so intimidated by the camo scheme.
That's the one thing about the French tanks. The camo is always difficult.
Oh,
Dude.
yeah.
Oh, I think it was the Sharpie 1. They did the actual tree mural on the tank. I want to do that.
Oh yeah, the one that I did.
Yeah, Dennis did that one.
Yes, I want to do that so bad.
Do it. You'll do a better job than I did. That tree stuff is hard.
We'll see. I want to do one where it's like halfway painted and there's a paint bucket there or a couple paint buckets and the Frenchmen are they're just having a smoke break or something. That I get all these fucking ideas and now I have to work, so I can't do it.
Yeah, welcome to my world. Half my time at work is
professional modelers.
Yeah, it's like, welcome to my world, Greg. I spend most of my week at work dreaming up on things I could make, and then sitting down on a weekend and going, I don't have the time.
Time or the energy. It's like, fuck, bro.
Yeah. I always say, it's like, I'll do this when I get home from work. And then when I finally stumble in at 6:37 and sit down going, I can't focus.
Yeah. I actually just applied for a job at a certain company that's a stay-at-home position only, and it's I think they said they work 10 to 6 or some shit like that. So I want a job where I have a schedule like that, so I can fucking schedule my modeling times.
You mean working from home as in you'll be answering emails and working on something at the same time?
Damn straight. Someone's gonna call me and be like, "I need to get into my account." I'm like, "Hang on, I'm gluing this last piece of track on." Like, what?
Yeah. Hang on, wait for this to dry.
Yeah, 1 second. The CA glue dries really quick. I'll be right with you.
And then they call you one day and you've spilled a bottle of extra thin all over your workbench, so you're super high. It's like, hey, this is Garrison, Callum. How may I do you?
Are you intoxicated? What? No, bro, I'm building models.
Officer, it's hi. How are you?
Oh, Lord. Yeah, that's my French tank. And here is my Tamiya Ardennes King Tiger. So this was also a very fun build. This was my first airbrush kit that I made for myself. So that was really nice. The first ever airbrush kit I did was an AAV that was a commission for someone, and it turned out really good. But having a build for yourself that you do with an airbrush, really nice. And I did the ambush camo. Tamiya once again coming in clutch. The build was easy. The only problem I had was that left hand side, that big old fucking side skirt there. I had problems attaching that on the front end because of how wide the tracks are. They made the tracks a little too wide, and you almost can't fit it. You got to hold the thing there until the glue sets, or else it's going to pop off. But besides that, tank went together great, super fun. And in the kit, it comes with a really good and in-depth guide on the different King Tigers they reference. So I did 008 because it was abandoned because of mechanical problems, and I think the Americans found it. And I found where it was actually abandoned was at a Y intersection, so that's diorama I made there. Google Earth coming in clutch as always. But yeah, really fun kit. The figures were great. I had a good time trying to figure out exactly how I was going to set up the motorcycle and the crewman, and kind of basically like the box art, but
Yeah, it looks good, man. It's really good.
Thank you.
I wish not to kiss your ass anymore or anything, but I wish I could do dioramas as good as you, but I just...
Well, maybe Callum doesn't want to kiss your ass, but I do. Bend over.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Yeah, this was a fun one, man. I'll be honest. I had a blast working on this because, like I said, I used Google Earth, and I went to the spot. It was fun because it was found, I think it was 5 kilometers or some shit like that at a Y intersection outside of a town. And I went to Google Earth and referenced photos and maps and shit, and I found the exact spot. And that's how I got the idea for the big tree on the right and the bushes on the left. Unfortunately, that tree is no longer there. I had to take it down because my dumbass put too much, or opened the hole too much in the base, so it kept falling. But yeah, super fun. Yeah, adding things like the German flag and the pictures in the fucking, for the gunner over there on the right hand side, he's got some pictures right inside of his hatch, and then one on the rim, and then the German tank commander with the map, and then that fucking driver, I had a map in his left hand folded up. No, super fun.
Wow. I do like it that you've been copying the box art. Like, that just does so much for it.
Yeah, I mean, I really wanted to do something different than the box art when I first got it, but I wanted to also keep it accurate to that specific tank, and this was the only way I could justify using everything. So, and I wanted to use everything because I'm weird like that.
Yeah, it's fair enough. Fair enough.
Well,
but yeah, that's that.
Nice builds, Greg.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So, I believe we've got a few announcements just about the group build that we are running. Main announcement is we've finally figured out a first prize, haven't we?
Yes, we have.
We have.
The first prize will be a Hobby Boss T26E2?
Is it E2 or E4?
It's one of the prototype Super Pershings, yeah, by Hobby Boss 1:35 scale.
Yeah, so if you do want to join the group build, just flick us a message on any socials. We'll send you a info sheet showing all the rules and stuff like that. One of the rules we specify is none of us in the podcast can win the prize, which means that don't be offended if we ask a lot of questions about you personally. It's just there's a high chance Greg might enter something in under a false name.
I want that Pershing, goddammit.
So we're going to have to be extra scrutinized on that, but don't worry about that. But otherwise, because we've had quite a few people join it. Hey.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, for being so new, we've gotten quite a few people that are interested.
Yep. I've also contacted Plastic Model Mojo, Kentucky Dave. So they've said actually he hasn't got back to me on that, but that's fine.
Plastic Model Mojo, get back to us. Don't leave us on red.
Also, if sorry, Callum,
you go for it.
If you'd like to see, I'm going to reference my channel again. I made a video over the rules and talking about the sheet and going over it. So if you'd like to see that, it's it's what's supposed to be my channel trailer, but it's the group build rules. It's about, I think, an 8 or 9 minute video talking about the rules and how things work and all that.
And one thing I will just let you guys know, to anyone who's listening, if you go onto our Instagram page, Micro Machines Podcast, we have a link tree, which basically has links to all of our socials, as well as the submission form for the group build if you want your build to be judged and in the competition. And we also have the rules document on there as well.
Otherwise, do we have anything else? Or should this be a short episode?
I think that might just be a short episode.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
I say short, nice an hour and a half, but
yeah.
Short compared to what we've been doing. We'll put it that way.
That's true. That is true.
Well,
yeah.
If you have been listening up until this point, thank you so much for listening. You have been listening and watching the Micro Machines Podcast. We will be back next week with a very special episode about a very special animal. Alrighty.
Wait.
Sweet.
See you, everyone.
See yas.
Hey, everyone.